recording like that, and then now we're off. So don't take it seriously at all. But yeah, so hi folks, thanks for joining me again. I'm joined with Meri and Lobby, talking about Taylor Swift stuff, their journey as creators, influencers, and so on. And I thought what would be good is bringing them together on this podcast to talk about some of the marketing side of things, talk about influencer marketing, and hopefully people out there can see this as a couple of people who have gone on a journey and they can learn from that as well, themselves. Like I said, don't take it seriously at all. So yeah, really, it's going to be over to you guys. You guys are going to be talking at me for the next probably
Love this.
half an hour, however long it takes. So yeah, talk to me about what you do.
So we are Meri and Lobs, as you've introduced us.
Formerly known as
Yeah.
Meri and Lobs at the Eras Tour.
Yeah,
That's kind of been our main thing for the last, I would say, 12 months. We just literally started changing our name now.
Yeah, so we have our own TikTok page, which we talk about everything to do with the Eras Tour, everything Taylor Swift related, and a few other things as well.
Yeah, so the idea with the TikTok is, so we both kind of had this really, really big passion about Taylor Swift, and all of a sudden we got tickets, and that was, I would say, one of the biggest moments in our life at the time. And we wanted to make sure that when we went, we were going to go all out. We had a very, very clear idea since the beginning. I think it took me about 2 seconds of seeing Taylor in her lover bodysuit to go, I want to make that. That is exactly what I'm wearing.
Yeah.
And so we knew it was going to be a very tricky journey.
Yeah.
And we knew that a lot of people were going through very similar journeys on TikTok. We met a lot of people that were creating content at the time like this. So we thought, do you know what? We're about to embark on a very, very long, sometimes boring, sometimes exciting, sometimes frustrating journey about how are we going to get to the Eras Tour and everything that involves.
Yeah. And it was less for us about making the content like we'd seen other people do, and more to kind of just document our journey of going to the tour, making the outfits and everything. We weren't necessarily doing it to become influencers or anything like that.
No. And in fact, it was quite funny because I remember one of the very first conversations we had about when the TikTok kind of started was, there's this sound, the intro sound of the tour, which is kind of like, it's been a long time coming, and then it goes through the albums, and the first thing I said was, oh my god, the day of the tour that we go, we need to make a TikTok about every single bit of the journey to get here with that sound. That was a vision, I think. And then from there, everything just kind of kick-started.
Just spiraled.
Yeah.
So we started off the journey with just making TikToks, and we were just we were making friendship bracelets. If you don't know, with Taylor, you have to make friendship bracelets and take them to the tour and trade them with people. So we kind of just started it off.
Is that mandated?
Of course.
Yeah. It was just
it's a suggestion that you shouldn't ignore.
I think it's just such a clever way of getting people to be social at a concert. I think it's really easy when you go to a concert to just kind of be on the queue for ages and then like find your spot, whether you're standing, whether you're sitting, and then just kind of like talk to the person that you were there with, and then that's it. Yes. And then you wait until the concert, you do the concert, and you're very happy, but that is as social as it's ever going to be.
Well, it's an interesting one. So although very different, when I jump into a meeting at work, right, you go to see a new customer, like a completely different environment. But one of my old colleagues, a guy called Ian Stretton, he told me basically, always take a pack of biscuits with you.
Yeah.
If you take a pack of biscuits, then everyone's going to love you.
Yeah.
You know? So yeah, no, I can see how taking sort of friendship bracelets.
And I think that was it. And we've actually met so many people that were there on their own completely, or like they had like last minute tickets and their friends were on the other side of the stadium and they were somewhere else. And actually, through all of this, you can meet so many new people. And the community that we've managed to kind of now build onto TikTok, which we'll go into in a bit more detail in a minute, but all those people have come from people that we've met on TikTok beforehand, and they've now then met in real life because of the concerts, or we've met through the concerts exchanging bracelets, and then they've kind of like continued the journey with us on TikTok. So it's been such a rewarding experience of having to meet, or like being able to meet all these people and doing these things.
Was there a reason you chose TikTok over Instagram Reels, YouTube Shorts?
Yeah, I think for me, we kind of talked about it quite a lot throughout the process, but for me, TikTok was the platform I was using, and the platform I'd seen other creators using as well and making content, and that was kind of the one that I interacted with the most. So I thought, well, it's as good a platform as any. And I know that, Meri, you use Instagram a lot more than you use TikTok, so we talked about kind of doing
the pros
both,
and cons, really,
and the pros and cons of it. And TikTok, we just found it a lot easier to make content on, and the actual like software that's on TikTok just a lot easier to use and edit the videos and stuff. And then once we'd started TikTok, trying to use both of them was it was a bit of a nightmare, because we just ended up uploading a video to TikTok, forgetting about Instagram, then thinking, do we upload it or do we just do the next one, or what do we do? So we just ended up staying on TikTok a bit more, didn't we?
And I have to say, because when we started on both platforms. TikTok favorites more views and spreading content, and especially if you're on a very specific niche topic, like in a way we are. Because TikTok, Swifty TikTok is like down here with the rest of the world that, you know, unless you're in there, you won't really access it. And Instagram, it's just notoriously more difficult to get engagement from. Usually, though, your Instagram followers and engagement will be a lot more loyal than TikTok, because TikTok can be very fleeting. So one of the things that we've learned in this journey is that views mean nothing, likes mean nothing, comments mean nothing, and what you really, really should be focusing is in saves and shares. That's what truly matters when you're making content. Everything else, very superficial.
So I think because TikTok, the videos are so short usually, and you're just constantly scrolling through them. People come and go very, very quickly. Whereas Instagram, you're usually there looking for something for a reason.
Or they have more like their family and friends and other people that they really want to follow. Whereas TikTok is more like, let's see what's out there in the world right now.
It's an interesting one. So I have it's called Fitter Fits, being my Instagram, my sports page. And I'm thinking, well, do I want to be a creator in that space? And the answer is, not so much. I could chuck some pictures on there, and that would document my journey and so on. It kind of keeps you accountable to a point. But anyway, one of the things I saw outside of that were people talking around how they share on Instagram and how content is proliferated, distributed across the platform. And then they were talking about how there's likes, comments, and so on. But essentially, it'll look at a group of people and how you interact with that group initially when you first post it. And assuming that you get the engagement or enough people like it or engage it, they'll then go on to the next batch. So what ends up happening is if you fill it with a bunch of hashtags, it'll go, right, we want to look in all those areas. And taking the fitness content, where we're looking at high rocks as a thing, if you just tag high rocks, there's so many other people posting that, just exceptionally saturated. And in terms of your viewers, well, there's thousands, hundreds of thousands, and so on. So are you actually going to get the penetration into that user base that you're after? The reality is probably not, until you're consistent. And one of the things that we talked about offline from this is around consistency. So how has consistency played a role in you creating content?
Well, we've realised that you have to be very consistent, as in you have to be posting daily, if not a couple of times a day, in order to not only get the views and get the people interacted, but actually to retain them. Because a lot of people, they'll follow if they see a video they like, but then if you don't post for 2 days, they'll just unfollow you again. So we've just realised we've got to be very consistent, and not only with posting things, but also doing lives, so that it's a bit more personal for people as well.
I think in our journey, because we started literally with very silly videos, we started to notice the pattern growing of people that were coming back when we started showing a bit. We started the journey of the costumes, and we started making things. So that's something that, okay, people want to know because people want to do it. So you're not at this point, you're not sharing just your life and being like, oh my God, you've got a cool life, great for you, you know? It's more like, oh, you've got something that I want. So then that's when you first start to like really go into the engagement of people.
And I think we noticed a massive change when we started showing ourselves and we started talking a bit more. So I touched on lives earlier. As soon as we started doing live streams on TikTok, and we were talking to people and answering questions and being a bit more personal and and having conversations with people instead of just posting a video and just leaving it there for people to watch.
Yeah.
People love that a bit more.
Yeah.
And we got a lot more followers from that.
That's when
kind
you
of thing.
started building the community.
Yeah.
When it's I think people need to essentially not only like your content but like you.
Yeah.
Want to invest time in you as a brand, as a creator. And that's really, really important that you get to connect. And that is via lives, in a way, in most platforms. A very interesting experience, we have to say. I think I remember the first few at the beginning, and we were it's really weird because you're essentially talking to nobody.
Yeah.
Like you're in a room literally talking to the wall, except that people reply back to you.
Yeah.
So then it feels really strange because you're answering, but you have no idea what these people look like, who they are, whether they're telling the truth or not. You know, you and a lot of ours have like, you know, and I mean now we know who that person is, but we had a follower that was a very consistent follower of ours that we've met. There was a smiley face for months, and then all of a sudden he was like, "Oh yeah, I'm the smiley face," and we were like, "Oh right, hi." You know, it's and it's great to put people into sort of usernames, but
we've had some weird comments as well.
Yeah.
Like we've had a few people that are like, "Oh, we know everything about you, but you don't even know who we are. We're just a smiley face or a dot," and we're just "Oh yeah, that's really weird."
Yeah, sometimes it can really go on a creepy lines.
Yeah.
Or, you know, we've had this conversation a lot of, you know, when is enough?
Yeah.
How much of your life do you want to share online? Because both of us, you know, we have our own personal lives, we have our personal families, we have our friendship groups, we have our jobs, and you know, we'll talk a little bit about that later, but we have a lot in the personal self, in the personal box, that we don't necessarily want to disclose because we want to make sure that we've got that life to kind of go back to. And we always say that TikTok is amazing and we love our community and we feel so great there. And, you know, they've cheered us up and they've carried us through times that we were like, I remember the days of the blazer. Like we were rhinestoning this blazer for like weeks on end, like every day.
For context on that, we rhinestoned an entire men's blazer that had about 60,000 rhinestones on it, and every single one we stuck one by one
individually. So it's a very time-consuming task, but it's also very not rewarding until the very, very friggin' end. So it was very much like those days. That's when we really, really wanted to do the lives, and kind of like they were making us laugh, and they really, really did. And those are the really positive sides. But then on the other hand, we had other things like hate, which I honestly did not think that.
I didn't think we'd get as much as we did.
Yeah. No, like genuinely.
Okay.
Because
we knew it was gonna happen.
Yeah, you hear like big people talk about hate. You know, like we're talking about hundreds of thousands of followers and millions of followers, and they talk about how much toxicity is online. And you know, I mean, all the videos that we send to each other all the time, the first thing we do is go into comments, or the comment you'll put is, "Oh, have you looked at the first comment from that video that I sent you?" And I was like, "Yeah," and that's kind of what you talk about. But actually, there's a lot of hate around. Now, for people that, you know, we are now sitting just about below 10K on our social. That is a very, very small pond. Yeah. For the hate that
you can almost guarantee that every single live that we do, you'll get one hate comment. Minimum, but it does outweigh by the hundreds of nice comments and lovely people who are really supportive.
So I suppose my question is that when it comes to feedback and interpreting that feedback and so on, I see a lot of people talking about it online, and they go, you know, the hate comments, it really gets to them. They'll stop posting. They'll even, you know, make a decision on, maybe actually, you know, I'll shut down my YouTube channel, or I'll shut down whatever because I can't deal with it. How do you strike that balance? Do you just ignore it? Do you take anything from it? Do you block? Like how?
Yeah, I think it depends on the kind of comments.
We started off. I think we've changed quite a lot with how we've handled it. When we first started the TikTok, a lot of the time we would ignore it, but a lot of the time we would just make jokes out of it. And then it got to a point, because we're quite close to 10K, it got to a point where we were getting them all the time. So we just ended up just muting them straight away. And then if they came back, because it mutes for 10 minutes, and then if they come back, because they're really that sad, then we'll just block them completely.
Yeah. Why do you think people do it?
we have a Taylor Swift page, so you can already guarantee that there's going to be people on there who hate Taylor Swift for whatever reason they hate Taylor Swift. And then they will turn that hatred from her for whatever reason. There's never normally an actual reason.
Yeah.
And then turn it onto us.
Yeah.
Just because we're there talking about her, or we're there making a costume to go to her show, or whatever we're doing. Most of the time, it's just stupid comments.
Yeah.
Like,
things that you can kind of easily brush off.
Yeah.
But then there's other times that, I mean, we've literally been threatened before. Yeah. And we've had to report that onto the platform, and the platform found it, that it was favourable to us, the report, and you know they got pushed off from the platform for I don't know how many days it was, whatever. But you know, but it got to that extent of where we were told by a person on the internet that they were going to come and find us at the show that we were going to and destroy our costumes and threaten with violence for two people that you've never met before in your life. It was a very interesting experience.
So how did you cope with that then? Because if someone came to me and said, "Oh, you know what, Jay? I know you're going to be at this event, and I'm going to chuck eggs at you as you're presenting," I'd be a bit like, "Well, I'm not sure I want to go to that event anymore." So how did you get past that?
One of the things that you learn to realize is that these people are all talk, or 90% of these people are all talk, right? So yes, you kind of are taking a bit of a gamble, and we had that conversation actually when it happened, and we were like, you know, do we need to take a bit more further action because
we actually talked about coming off TikTok as a whole when we had that comment.
Because it was a bit like people do know where we're going to be.
Yeah.
I mean, that is the whole point of the TikTok and our page was to be so that people knew where we were going to be, so that we could meet with them and so we could, you know, create all these the beautiful connections that we had online in real life and all that and just kind of share our journey. But it was, when it comes to safety, then there was a shift into kind of what we did. And I think with that person, that's kind of how we learned to change the approach. Yeah. Because that was a very before and after for us, I think, when it came to hate comments. Yeah. Because that person, just to for a bit of context in the story, that person came in with one account, started saying really nasty things. Now, we're very lucky that our followers actually are really protective. Yeah. And as soon as they see the very first hate comment, they'll jump on it. Yeah. And before we even see it, because obviously usually TikTok has a delay as well. So before we even are seeing it and responding to it, most of our followers are like, "What are you doing here? Leave the live. Why are you even saying this? Yeah. You know, if you don't like this, if you know."
And sometimes that works, and the person just leaves because they realise, oh, actually, I'm not going to get anywhere here by threatening these people. Yeah. But sometimes it just kind of spurs them on, which I think is what happened with that person.
One. So that person we muted. Immediately she came back
on a different account.
Then we realized it was the same person, so we blocked that account, came back from the original account. We blocked that account.
She ended up having about 4 accounts.
Yeah. So went onto the boyfriend's account, which she disclosed, which it was just really weird. And then from the boyfriend's account is actually where she made the threat, and then that was obviously immediately reported as a threat. Yeah. And then that stopped.
Eventually these people do just get bored. Yeah. Because they've clearly got nothing better to do with their lives. So.
Yeah. So pulling out of the toxic side of things, one of the things that we've spoken about, you know, again outside the podcast is meeting up with your fans and getting to know people, and they're really happy to talk to me about that experience.
Yeah, so we've met up with quite a few of our fans at different events. Yeah. But I think you talked about the smiley face person. It's started off, all of our TikTok followers have started off as we haven't known them. They've just kind of been names on our TikTok, and they've just been commenting things and then just talking to us. But we've noticed that they kept coming back.
The beautiful thing is, and I don't think people realise this, but the more lives you do, the more that you realise people come back, you start learning everybody's names, and you start associating a personality to that person. Yeah. Which you'd think that with the hundreds and thousands of people that we've had overall in our lives, you know, you wouldn't get to that point, but actually you do.
You definitely
because
do.
There's some days that we've done lives and there's been 10 people for the 2 hours that we've been there.
We've built a community where we've got almost 10k people, but out of those 10k we've probably got between 50 and 100 that constantly come back and
that we know, that we could tell you about,
and they know us. Yeah. And so we've been to a few events. So we went to HMV in Leeds that was doing a Taylor event, and there's been a few others. And every time we go to these events, we tell our followers, look, we're going to be there. If you guys want to come and say hi, please do. Yeah. And I think the HMV one is the first one where we met a lot of people.
Yeah.
So the smiley face came up to us with their family and said, "I'm the smiley face," and I think that's a moment we'll always remember.
Yeah.
And
it was very precious.
Yeah, and we've had pictures and stuff with them, and that's been really nice.
It was,
and I think every time we've met someone from our TikTok, it's been a great experience.
Yeah.
Like it's never been anything bad, never been anything nasty. And we always say to our followers, just come up to us and say hi, because we don't know who you look like, but we know that you guys know who we are. Yeah. So just come up to us and don't be scared, because we'll be nice.
Yeah.
But again, I think friendship bracelets and making them have helped with that as well. So,
because it just gives, I think it just gives something to do for the people that are really, really shy.
Yeah.
And it's almost like, we've had people, I mean, we talk about the smiley face, but I remember he kind of came in and was just like, there you go. And that was the first bit of the interaction. And then he said, you know, like, oh, I've been following you, blah, blah, blah. And then he went away, and then he kind of came back and was like, oh, can I have a picture? And it's, you know, it's like, it's a great way of helping people introduce to each other in a way.
And we've have had some weirder experiences of, like, we were at the tour and then we just heard, oh my god, it's Meri and Lobs, from like a crowd away, and we were like, hello. And I didn't even see who the person was.
No,
but
I did, yeah. And I was just like, hi, from across the hall. Because I was like, you're so far away, like we can't even do anything because we're walking opposite directions. But it was really weird. Like it's really bizarre going to these places and just kind of, and that was what, you know, we've kind of had this reaction every time we said, oh, we've been to the tour, you know, 5 times, and we've kind of toured alongside Taylor in the UK, and it's really weird. But actually, because we've done that, we've managed to kind of literally do the whole range of people that we have had across the country that haven't been able to like move to one specific place. So we have met people at every single event or every single tour date that we've been. Yeah. And I think that was really important to us as well, because we wanted to be available for these people. Yeah. Because they've been available to us all throughout this year. I mean, sometimes really random times in the night, or, you know, when we've been really tired and we've not wanted to kind of put as much effort in, but actually they've been a force that's kind of driven us a lot.
You've spoken a lot about the people. And getting engaged with those, and we're a tech podcast more than anything. So let's bring some tech into it. So, in terms of sort of your demographic information, you know, the types of people that you're interacting with, you talk about views, saves, shares. Yeah. I imagine you know, when we do change in businesses, we like to set a metric, we like to measure that and see how we improve it. I imagine you do something similar with TikTok. So. Yeah. Do you want to walk me through what that looks like in TikTok and how that's changed the way that you've created content?
So on TikTok, there's something called the TikTok Studio, which has all the analytics of our followers and who interacts with our profile. Yeah. And I think one of the things that we found quite helpful, I mean, all of it is really helpful. They've got the locations of, like the rough locations of who it is that follows you and things. And I think that's helped a lot with meeting up with people, because we've been able to see, like, oh, there's quite a lot of people in London, so we'll try and get to one of the London shows to meet people. Or there's quite a lot of people around Leeds, I think we found, which is obviously one of the places we went to. Yeah. And then it's also got, like, the different demographics, so the different ages and things of people, and so that we can kind of cater what we're creating to those ages. So we get mainly Gen Z that's on our TikTok, and we do get quite a few of like 40 to 50 year olds as well.
Which actually, one of our goals was to increase that range, because we wanted to make sure that we were also catering for everybody else. That actually Gen Z have a lot of space online. Yeah. They take up a lot of space online, but actually we know that, you know, millennials or just slightly older generations work slightly differently, and they want content slightly differently. And it was very important to us that we do a bit of everything so that we can target all those people that sometimes feel like they don't have a space online or not as much space online. And actually for us it was really important, because we are not, you know, 17, 18. Yeah. So even though we get a lot of younger generations and younger people, we wanted to make sure that we also had a lot of our generation and our age and a slightly older, because the same way that we are here doing this, we wanted them to have a space for that.
I think when we first started the TikTok page, because we were new to it, we didn't really know what we were doing, we did have a lot of kind of 18-ish age on there, and as we've gone through, we keep checking the analytics on TikTok, and we've definitely increased the amount of people.
Another really good thing about TikTok's analytics that gives that I think for us for a very long time we relied on it a lot, because it's all about the build up. You don't get to where we are now overnight, and I think that's very, very important for people to understand. It's that consistency we talked about, and it's the ebbs and flows that are going to come with it, because you have times where you'll be consistently on the tens of thousands of views on like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 videos in a row, and then all of a sudden you'll hit a brick wall and you'll be on 200 views, and you start wondering, what have I done? What have we done? Like, have we done something wrong? Did we click the wrong thing? Did we type a hashtag that we know that is now like being monitored? Or what you start wondering. But actually you also need to understand that sometimes the platform shadow bans you. For it could be endless reasons. A lot of it is to promote their own promote. So you have an option that obviously you can promote. You pay, and you pay for views, and you pay for subscriptions, and you pay for many things that you can pay for. And I think it's really important for younger creators and people that are starting up to know that you don't get to 120k just overnight. And if you have a lot of money, you can buy that as well. So when you're looking at other content creators that are much further ahead than you, don't take their engagement or the surface level of engagement that you can see as guaranteed engagement.
Would you say it's somewhat pay to win? So in video games, you can pay for something. It's going to give you a slightly better weapon, which means you can do more damage or whatever.
You can definitely do it.
And I think, like you said, when you do feel that you've been shadow banned and your views are reducing, there's always an option that always comes up on those specific videos. You might want to promote this video, and clearly they're shadow banning it, so you're more likely to pay, and you're more likely to get.
Exactly. Which makes sense, because like we said before, they're a business, and they obviously want their bottom line, and you want your bottom line, and at the end of the day, if this is your sole income, you're not going to want to give that up. You want to be consistent on that.
And I think on that point, it's a nice segue into, you talk about if that is your sole income, but I think the reality is that you're doing this in addition to your other jobs. And one of the topics we've touched on in the past is burnout. So talk me through about how you balance content creation across those platforms with your day-to-day job, and how that's had a toll.
Not gonna lie, it's been very difficult.
I think because we both have full-time jobs that are quite taxing jobs, and we also have part-time jobs, and then also this, it's just there's a lot to kind of keep on top of. And I think the most important thing is just keep an eye on your own stress levels and your own mental health, and take breaks when you need to. We've talked about the fact that consistency is the best thing, but if consistency is actually going to damage your health, then maybe it's not the best thing.
And is it easy to burn out?
Very. Like, I remember we got to a point when we were on a very quick step on, for a bit. We were rising quite quickly at this point, and I remember, we wanted to be as organized as possible, because I always say, without organization, there's no way that we're gonna make all these work. Especially when we were both doing ridiculous hours in our part-time jobs, plus everything else, plus trying to create the content, plus having to keep on top of making our outfits, because there was a deadline for that as well. So it was difficult for sure, but I think I remember that time being quite, we got to meet on a Sunday morning. We got to write down everything that we're going to talk about on the podcast, because we also have a podcast as well, which, I mean,
a shameless pin there.
We will talk about a little bit about all the things that we've managed to do because of the TikTok. TikTok is our main thing, but we've actually managed to branch out quite a lot from it, and we're very happy with what we've been able to achieve with that.
But I think trying to juggle all of that
was very, very hard. And I remember, Sunday morning we would sit down and we would write everything that we needed to talk about in the podcast, because we filmed our episode on a Sunday morning, and then we would have another page with all the videos that we needed to make for that week, because obviously it's not only just filming, editing, and the actual putting everything together, but it's also like coming up with the ideas, staying relevant, staying on top of the trends, because if you're 3-4 days later, you're no longer going to be on it. Yeah. So it was really, really difficult. And it got to a point that I think we made a decision to say, actually, we need to slow down.
Yeah.
And we need to be okay with the fact that instead of, 100 followers every other day, we are going to have 20.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
But I also think the ability to be able to track our progress on the analytics on TikTok was very helpful for that as well.
Yeah.
Because instead of us going, but if we miss a day, we're going to lose X amount of followers and then this is going to happen, we could actually check on the analytics and go, actually, the day that we missed, we actually gained 10 followers anyway.
Yeah.
So it's not as much as we normally would, but it's not detrimental to what we're trying to achieve.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So it's not the end of the world.
Exactly.
And I think that was a good way of us kind of not allowing ourselves to burn out as much.
Exactly.
By saying we can have breaks.
Yep.
Yes, it's not going to build us up as fast as it could, but you can't build yourself up if you've burnt out completely.
Yeah.
So it's just steadily.
And so many times that we've where we've been ill or we've had other things, or like when I've been away to see my family and we've not been together, so then it's really difficult to make content because our brand is 2 people, and those moments have been really, really like crunch points. And you go through our TikTok and it's quite funny because you can really tell when we were where.
Yeah.
Because the content slightly decreases quality or changes slightly to something else that we needed to kind of try and do so that we could create content, but not enough that people are going to be like, well, what's this, It's quite funny seeing the trends like that on there. But at the very beginning, I remember it was very useful for us to see what time our followers were most engaged with.
Yeah.
On the, like, you can see it over the last 7 days. So we would be on the following week, it'd be like, okay, today's Wednesday, let's check last Wednesday what time most of our followers were in, and it would be like something like, I don't know, usually it would be like 7, 8, 9. And then we would be like, right, so we've got this video ready to post. You can't schedule on the iPad on the app, but so usually we just go in and post it around that time, because we know that that's usually the best time. But you also learn that sometimes is not the most accurate because it depends on what happens. We've had days where we're like, we're going to post at 7, and then all of a sudden Taylor Nation's done an announcement at 6.
Yeah.
Well, there we go. That's our planning gone, because Taylor Nation's posted, which means that everybody's there. Everybody's there now. Everybody's watching. You had a video posted that you've been working for a week. It doesn't matter, because now you need to talk about that.
Yeah.
So you have to.
You've just got to learn to be flexible with it all, haven't you?
Exactly. And that's it, isn't it? You and some days we, they would do the announcement and we'd go, nah, it's fine. Let's just stick to what we've got, because it's fine. We don't need to do it. And if it was important enough, then we would just record a very quick video instead and do it that way. But you have to be okay with the decisions you make and not look back too much. I think that's the main thing.
Yeah.
With the journey.
Moving away from content creation for a moment and into monetization.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
One of the things that you mentioned to me is around Etsy, Amazon storefronts, that sort of stuff. So why did you decide to get on that route?
So on our TikTok page, we documented when we were making costumes and when we were making the friendship bracelets and everything all the projects that we were doing.
Yeah.
And we'd constantly get comments going, oh, where did you get this from? Where did you get this from? And it would be very basic things that if you just did a quick Amazon search, you would be able to find it quite easily.
Or you would find that there's 10 different types and you're like,
you don't know
which one is actually the one that's good. Actually, I've seen this person using it and that looks good and they look like they're recommending it. So
at that point, we started off just replying to people and going, oh, it's actually on Amazon, or it's actually this.
This link. I remember we were just copying links all the time.
We got to a point where we were like, this is ridiculous. Like, why are we replying to every single comment with basically the same link and the same everything?
Especially, there was this one video that changed it all for us. Because it went viral, completely viral. Like, it's now sitting at 4 million views. Yeah. That was crazy. Because we went from having, to respond to, maximum of 20 comments to, hundreds
of thousands.
And everybody was asking the same thing. Because the one thing that people don't do is read each other's comments. That would just be way too easy. Yeah. So then we were like, okay, let's do it.
We talked about it and we decided to set up an Amazon storefront, which actually ended up being so easy.
It's literally
you just go onto Amazon, you just what's it called? Amazon Associates Program, I think it's something like that. But you just go onto Amazon, basically search storefront, and you just sign up, and it's that easy. And then you've got an Amazon storefront.
And then all you gotta do is literally go to find the products, link it to your Amazon, you just add it,
Yeah.
make lists,
Yeah,
and that's it.
So when you're on the Amazon storefront, you just click create like a playlist, and when you click on it, it brings up your recent searches or your recent orders or anything that you want to find, and then you just click on the ones you want, add it to that playlist, and then it's on there for everyone to see it, and then you can name them whatever you want. So we've got one that's like bracelets, one that's bodysuit, one that's the blazer, so that people can find stuff really easily
even now we've branched out to like having like vinyl like stuff in there, like the speakers,
basically anything that anyone asks about, we're like, oh, it's on our Amazon storefront, go find it.
And do you get commission off
that?
That, or?
So with that, so what you gotta do is you obviously post the link onto for people to access, and the way that we've done that, really, really helpful tip if you want to go into this, Linktree. Love Linktree. Yeah. We're very good fans with that. It's really easy to maneuver. You just literally put the links. You can edit the headers, make sure that it looks like exactly what you want it to look like, and then it's really easy to get them on and off from there as well. Yeah. But we put a Linktree because we had several things going on at the time, but Amazon Storefront was one of them. So we put that on the top, and then when people click that, now here's where it gets a bit more tricky, because if you get in order for you to get commission, which you do get commission, there's you get a list with all the different percentages depending on what kind of stuff is. So depending on what category they fall under, there's some of them are a bit higher, some of them are much lower. So things that are very popular is going to be much lower. Things that are very weird, then it's going to be much higher. But the person has to click your link, put it on their basket, check out, then you get the commission. If they click your link, look at it, put it on a list, leave it, go back on it, I don't know, the next day from their normal Amazon account, through the app, then go and check out and buy it, you don't get commission.
It has to be almost like a continuous journey.
It's got to be the So it's got to be that you show to Amazon that person's bought that product because of you, rather than, well, it was inspired by you, but actually we are selling it. We are marketing it.
One of the good things though about the Amazon storefront is then once you're within that associates program, anything that you order yourself, you get a little bit from that order. Yeah. So you don't necessarily pay as much as somebody without an Amazon storefront for any product, whether it's listed or not. Yeah. Which is pretty good. Yeah. So you get a little bit of money back.
Okay. So that was the first step. As we continued with the process and the journey, that's when we decided to have the podcast. So that was something that I wanted to do for a very long time. Yeah. Just because I love talking. So of course I wanted to have a podcast.
We see that.
Yeah, just tell me to shut up. You usually do on our podcast. Yeah. But yeah, it was a fun thing. There was so much that we wanted to talk about, and lives were somewhat restricting in that sense, because we were having interactions with people and we wanted to talk about these things, but actually you catch people on a 2-hour time, like sort of parenthesis, well actually what about everybody else that couldn't be at that time during that time. So what we said, because a lot of people were asking our opinions, or like, oh my god, have you seen this, or did you see that what happened in the last night show? And actually we were like, yeah, we did, and we actually have a lot of opinions about it. And we were like, what are we gonna do? So we decided to go on our podcast. Now there's so many different options when it comes to making a podcast. We were very overwhelmed. I think at the beginning we were like, should we do this? But no, actually it's a lot easier than it looks. So we decided to go with Spotify for podcasters, because it was the easiest by far of softwares.
It's such an easy app to use as well, and everything's very clearly laid out. Everything's very obvious. There are obvious buttons of what you need to press. It's basically an idiot's guide to podcasts.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. So, I mean, this podcast is just on YouTube. Yeah. So we want to get that onto Spotify. Yeah. So if it's really easy,
we would definitely recommend Spotify for podcasters. It's literally all you gotta do is an app.
Yeah. Download your file from what you've recorded for the podcast, and then just
in a way, you can also record within the app itself, but we use a different software because we have to edit quite a lot of it, and we've got intros and blah blah blah. And it's easier to do on a computer than on here. Yeah. But you can do it on here if you feel like you're just gonna go with it and roll. That's not usually me, because I make 1,000 mistakes. But and then so what you get is you get this app, and then in the app itself you also get analytics. So it's really good, because so let's say we've just filmed an episode. You can also attach video footage. We are not at the moment, because that's just like an extra layer that we didn't want to do. We just, at the moment, we're working on just audio. But you upload the file, you put your description of the episode, and then you've got a bunch of questions. So if it's explicit content or not, you can arrange it per seasons, per episodes. You can also schedule it, which is what we do. So we usually schedule it for about 1 o'clock in the morning or whatever time we're posting it.
Yeah, so we record it on a Sunday and then schedule it to post on the Monday early in the morning, so that a lot of our followers say they like to listen to it on their way to work, or when they're on the bus or whatever they're doing. Yeah.
So it's just easier that way. But then, and then what you do get is you get a lot of insights information, which is really, really helpful in terms of like how many plays per episode. You've got like audience, you've got followers as well within the app.
One thing I'd say is a bit of a drawback of this is there are a lot more analytics if you go on it through a web page instead of through the app.
Yeah.
But
it's like on YouTube you get YouTube Studio.
Yeah.
So you can access some of your stats via I think the YouTube app, and then there's YouTube Studio that has a load more insight.
Yeah.
And when you go onto the website, one of the nice things is it'll suggest content to you. Mm-hmm. So maybe a bit boring for this one, but I built a video or did a video around Power Apps, which is like basically you can build your own apps. Long and short of it. Yeah. Really easy, and you don't need to write much code, so it's like a really good introductory way to build apps. And we built a calendar control, which all that is it's like when you select your date of birth, it pops up with a calendar.
Yeah.
Essentially that I've dumbed it down a bit, but I could go through my videos, see how people engage with it, and people love the how-to videos on how to do this thing in this thing. So a lot of the other content derived from that has all been how to do this, how to do that. And I imagine with the Spotify analytics, it might show you. Does it show you suggestions, or is it more just around demographic and views?
It's more just demographic and views. Yeah, it doesn't have suggestions as such. It does show you which of your episodes is more favoured, has more plays, has had more clicks.
You've got like
on
a ranking,
more interactions.
But the good thing about the Spotify as well is you can put a poll and a question for every episode. So again, you're trying to drive that engagement a little bit more, and also we always leave it open because we've got a section that's can I ask you a question, and it's that we always leave open so that if people can and do have it, that they can use it. But it's really, really good. We found it very, very helpful.
Yeah.
Very easy to use, and I mean we even use like AI to create our a thumbnail, kind of like our brand sort of
main picture on
your
it.
Main picture, and it was really good, and we've kind of stuck with it, and we're very happy with it, and that's that. Like,
and linking it back as well to our TikTok page. On TikTok you can have subscribers, so instead of just having followers, you can also have subscribers, and they pay a monthly fee to be able to get exclusive content basically. So that could be like sub only videos or sub only lives, and with our podcast we have it so that subscribers can watch us live filming the podcast, so they can see all the mistakes, they can see everything like that,
like
before it's edited and actually put up. And that's something that we've linked quite nicely with our podcast, because the subscribers love it, and they feel like they're getting value for money because they're seeing something no one else sees as well. So that's something that's really driven our audience.
It's a much smaller community, which means that we can really, really ham on the the people that are there, so that we can have that quality time together. And usually can I ask you a question section is usually them asking live questions.
And I think one of the other things that you mentioned to me as well was, I suppose because it's more intimate, you can kind of tailor the content a little bit more.
Exactly.
And you talked about potentially doing some Spanish
podcasts
or TikToks and so
that's it. Because we've seen that so many of our followers are actually as well from Spain, which makes sense obviously because sometimes I post when I'm there, so then it kind of picks up the algorithm from there. And and obviously one of the shows that we were going was Madrid, so we actually met a couple of followers in Madrid in the show, and that was really, really nice. But we had my mom here on the podcast, and we did most of it in English, but we've been thinking about where to kind of go with it, because there's so much. There's a big part of audience from Spain that will understand the videos in English but won't necessarily engage with it as much, or they won't engage because of the language barrier. So it was definitely a possibility that we've kind of trying to see.
Cool, lovely stuff. Well, I suppose what we'll do next is kind of a bit of a summary. So we've talked about some of the good bits, some of the bad bits, and so on. Would you recommend other people go on the same journey?
I do.
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah, definitely.
I think it's a very rewarding journey, getting to know people who have the same interests as you and creating that community of people. No matter what you're interested in, it doesn't have to be Taylor Swift, obviously. But I would definitely recommend it. And I'd say TikTok is super easy to use. If you want to do a podcast, Spotify is super easy to use.
Yeah.
And
definitely.
Etsy super easy to use. Amazon storefront super easy to use. So
definitely,
yeah,
lovely stuff. Well, on that note, folks, you've heard it here first with Meri and Lobby. Before we bring things to a close, is there anything you want to plug into this podcast? Maybe your own podcast.
So we have we have a TikTok page which is Meri and Lobs.
Yeah.
We have a podcast on Spotify, and it's on Spotify only, and that's Swiftly Speaking, a Taylor Swift fan podcast. And
we
then
do this a lot.
we also have an Etsy page which is also Meri and Lobs, but that's easier to kind of access from the link tree on our TikTok anyway.
Yeah, definitely. And the Amazon storefront.
That's also on our link tree.
Cool. Yeah. And what I'll try and do is get the links in the comments below.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thanks for coming on, and until next time.
Thanks for having us.
Bye.